Hey, it's Elaine Colliar. I'm the 5 times World Mind Map Champion and the Chief Arbiter for the World Mind Map Championship. Today we're looking at a mind map created by one of our competitors in the discipline that is written text. What we do is every year we look for publication, something that's not generally available to our competitors, and they are tasked with mind mapping that written text in its entirety. Now, what we're looking for is how they break down the written text into different themes and how they can demonstrate that they have read the text to a good enough understanding that they can give us plenty of detail. It's the equivalent of being in school and mind mapping from perhaps a textbook or a book one of the teachers gives you. So it's one of the more interesting disciplines within the World Mind Map Championship. It's also the same discipline that I use when I'm reading books in real life. I mind map along with reading, which means I've got a wonderful record of books going back years and years. So let's have a look at this competitor's mind map. The first thing I'd like to say is it's a really good central image. It's the appropriate size and of course it's in the middle of the page. There are at least 3 colours being used in the central image, which means that it ticks all the boxes to get maximum marks in the World Mind Map Championship scoring system, which is of course called the Paris marking scheme, the very last marking scheme that Tony Buzan collaborated with Phil Chambers and myself, Elaine Colliar, before he died. So it's the last marking scheme that Tony used in order to answer the question, how do you mark a mind map? And of course the central image is incredibly important for mind maps. It's the title, if you like, it's the cover art for everything that's included inside. So it's very important that we have a unique central image. And in this case what we have indeed got is we've got an image of the magazine. It could be slightly more imaginative, I confess, but it is what it is, and it's entirely adequate to get full marks. The branches for me, the main branches are a little too chunky, they're a little too wide. One of the joys of mind maps is that you can always go back and add additional branches, add additional information. In this particular mind map, it would be very congested, very difficult to go back and add another couple of branches in. So I think they're a little too heavy and a little too wide. They could be done with being half the width where they join onto the central image, but they do join onto the central image very nicely, so they get good marks for that. The branches are also very clearly differentiated when it comes to colour. You know, there's a red one, there's a purple one, there's an orange one, there's a green one. So that also gets full marks, and I can notice that they've used patterning on the mind map main branches because basically the branches are incredibly chunky. It would take a long time to colour them in. So top marks there as well. For preference, I'd like to see them a little bit more slender and refined. There are more than 10 images on this mind map, which means it gets a maximum amount of marks for images. They're not great though. Can I say, maybe for next year this competitor would like to spend, a few hours during the next year just looking at some images on Google or some cartooning, just to really refine their central image and their detail images a little bit more. Also, the images are pretty much in black and white, and I'd like to see them more in full colour. After all, we create memories in full colour because we experience real life in full colour. I'm also not quite sure what the yellow highlighting is about. It's interesting. I don't think it adds something very memorable for me as a reader, but it perhaps does for the author of this mind map. Perhaps it's a code that I don't understand that helps them remember more information. The one good thing about this mind map is, and there are several good things about this mind map of course, is that it uses up lots of space on the paper. It's not clustered down to one side. It's not shy about running out towards the periphery of the paper as well. I like to see mind maps that are unabashedly inhabiting the page. They should roll out and they should use all the space that's available to them. I like negative space in mind maps. I like there to be white paper between branches. I like it to be clear and crisp, because that kind of feng shui of mind maps, that negative space, also helps to create a little bit of breathing room for you on a mind map, a little bit of reflection time, and also space that you could go back and you could, if you wanted to, add additional information in the future. Back on the branches, they go from very, very chunky to very, very spindly very, very quickly. I'd like to see something that's more of a gradual fat to thin progression. And the same with the words. The words on the main branches are nice and chunky towards the center, but they get very small and very samey very quickly on the branches. Remember, we should start off at the center with everything being very big because that's the most important themes, and it gets progressively smaller as we ripple out to the edges of the mind map. So for 2022 World Mind Map Championship, I'd like to see this competitor focus a little bit as well on showing us the difference between the most important themes towards the center and the details out towards the periphery, by showing that gradual lessening, that gradual diminution of the words as they ripple out. So starting from very large, rippling down to large, to medium, to small, to very small. There's a couple of text boxes on this mind map. Now, that's an interesting one. Perhaps one of the debates that Tony Buzan and I had endlessly through many glasses of wine and many dinners and many lunches towards the end of his life. I am an advocate for the occasional text box. Perhaps because I've been raised on cartoons and graphic novels, but also because I read a lot of literature. And very often what you need is you need to capture a quote in its entirety just because the quote is a genius quote. And quotes, when you are looking at the one word per line and only one word per line rule, don't really flow as well as they do that if you pop them into a speech bubble or a thought bubble. So I'm an advocate for a judiciously chosen quote bubble. Tony hated them, of course. He was very much about the one word and only one word per line, but I can see the use of them. Now, I don't mark people down for using quote bubbles if they're appropriate. If there are too many, then it becomes very difficult to hold lots and lots of quotes, no more than maybe 5, 6, 7 quotes per mind map. But you certainly won't get marked down by me by using quotes on your mind map if they're appropriately displayed. But they have to be appropriate, and it's nice to see them either as a thought or as a speech bubble. You know, look to cartoons to find out the iconography that you need to use. But Tony would have hated them. Me, I think they've got their uses, so I'm prepared to let them pass. So next year, what would my biggest tip be for this, I have to say, very competent mind mapper? I think what I would like to see is I would like to see the mind map be a little bit more relaxed. It does feel a little jagged and angular, so I'd like to see it just be a little more flowing and organic. You know, to really relax into knowing that you know the rules of mind mapping, you're deploying them very, very well. Just like to see less stress and more relaxation. After all, the calmer we are, the easier it is for us to learn. So I do hope this competitor comes back to compete in the 2022 World Mind Map Championship, because this is actually a really good mind map, and I can't wait to see, you know, 365 days later, how they have refined the art and the skill of mind mapping over the last year. So fingers crossed we see you in 2022. Bye.